Oh, hello there. Yes. Well, Sunday was International Men's Day. Why only one day? Well, because all the other days are men's days, aren't they? But that's kind of Feminism 101. Thankfully, we had a fairly long piece on Twitter from Connor Tomlinson, and we're going to have a deeper dive into that because I just think it's basically laughable for somebody that sits in a leather armchair and pontificates about men, the fact that he just doesn't actually know anything about any sort of writing about men. Realistically. So, let's dive in. It's International Men's Day, something which for the first time I feel compelled to care about. Okay, no full stop. I won't care about that if you don't. Men's suffering has reached a new level of salience because an antagonistic form of anti-masculine feminism has reached critical mass in modern culture. Yes, salience. I imagine a lot of your audience don't actually know what that word means. Importance. Yes, again, I haven't got a full stop, but I'm trying my best to ignore that. Yes, an antagonistic form of anti-masculine feminism. Yes, intriguing because I would have thought that by definition all feminism is at least antagonistic and slightly anti-masculine, even the liberal form. Isn't it? Am I missing something there? Patently, I must be. I would have thought. Anyway, yes, it's reached a critical mass. In other words, perhaps that Connor's noticed it, because in all of his not yet 25 years, I guess he's largely been unaware of it. But now, magically, he's going to problematise all those people that are doing things wrong in society and completely miss the target. But we'll come on to that. Maybe if you read some more feminism, but we'll come on to that, yes. Even conversations about men's issues are only acceptable in lay press when framed by the standpoint of female concerns. Articles by women about men, prefaced with progressive, oh my god, he's put a capital P, in-group signalling about the minority of men who commit sexual violence and mass shootings, good linkage there, are the only pieces addressing men's concerns. While I welcome the solidarity shown by these men's issues won't be addressed if outlets continue to gatekeep discourse about gender as only women's work. Yes, indeed, but Connor, this is a generalised critique, if you think about it, of the media as a whole, which doesn't address people's concerns full stop. And the things that you're talking about here would be like articles in the Daily Mail, which is notoriously not very pro-feminist. So once again, you've kind of failed to understand, because you have no basic understanding of the basic levels of reading that you might do around this subject, exactly what the problem is. Men are castigated when they fall outside their traditional roles, something you'd like to see more of, or less of, if you know what I mean. And that's what it's about. Women are also castigated in the same way. I'll refer you to such things as anorexia, which is also becoming a male problem, of course, but more of that in a short while. Men face a series of sex-specific problems. It's hard to say. Men kill themselves at a staggering rate, with suicide being the leading cause of death for men below 45 and reaching a record high in 2022. Yes, because we haven't had the figures for this year yet. It'll be even higher, won't it? Yes. Why, Connor? Is it the antagonistic form of feminism? No, it's to do with the economy, isn't it? Maybe if you read a bit more and thought about things, maybe on a bit of a sociological line, you'd actually get your head round that, okay? Men are no longer required to do the things that traditionally men have been required to do, if you like, in terms of lifting heavy things and moving them from A to B. It isn't the 1950s anymore. I know you want it to be, but it isn't the 1950s anymore, and people work in call centres now. And that has left people, especially with their traditional form of masculinity, something you're very keen on, with a whole host of problems. Men are brought up to be masculine, and that is problematised in lots of different ways, rightly, because it leads to men committing suicide because they're not in contact with their emotions, something that you seem to kind of want to do. I mean, there's this photograph of you accompanying the article where presumably you're just about to bring the meat home or something, but I think it's designed to make you look sensitive. But isn't that feminine? Being sensitive? Isn't it feminine to talk about issues? Isn't it feminine to, actually have emotions and deal with them as a human being rather than simply committing suicide because you're overwhelmed? Leave that one hanging in the air. 4 million men, 1 in 10, in the UK are using sexual dysfunction medication. This is exacerbated by the recent scourge of internet porn addiction and overprescription of ADHD medications. Well, I don't know, mate. I think you mean sort of things like Viagra, which older men with erectile dysfunction will probably reach for. You know, you can problematise these things as much as you want. It's not a particularly male thing. If you think about, if you did some reading about female sexual dysfunction, you'll see astoundingly high figures. Or just maybe if you just had more partners, you'd sort of try to get your head round that. It's very common. It's not male. Let's move on. Right, okay. More men than in history are single and childless. Don't underestimate the impact that this dispossession and delayed sense of fatherly purpose is having on the health of discourse and on faith in civilization, which is where Connor realistically is simply talking about himself. We don't know about history, and in terms of the way that lots of men were forced to be single, even in recent history, things we do know about, we do know that various large groups of men were kept single. I'll show you, point you to, for example, Zulu warriors and the constraints on them in terms of fighting battles and when they were allowed to marry, for example. You think about those societies where a number of men will have harems and poor men won't. So it's a real overgeneralisation. And yes, okay, you want to become a dad. Well, then just become a dad, Connor, you know? Just do it, okay? Yeah? Simply because you're not a father doesn't mean you have to lose faith in civilization. I mean, that's just pompous nonsense. Moving on. I know many young men who feel bereaved by the families they haven't had yet. That's you, mate. Who can't improve themselves before they graduate to this next stage of their lives. That's the economy, Connor. Again, it's the economy. It's not oppressive feminism reaching a critical mass. It's late period capitalism. Again, try reading something else. Why should they work and try if it's for nobody but themselves? Late period capitalism, but for no reason but to consume meet insatiable surrogate desires. Yes, indeed, late period capitalism. Try reading some basic Marxist writings. Try it. Just for once, you may have a revelation. Not only are they not fathers, more than 50% of children today grow up in a household between two where fathers are scarcely or never present. Yes, because society about 40 odd years ago, 50 years ago, with the Divorce Acts, decided that women didn't want to be imprisoned in failing relationships with horrific men, Connor. Now, you can try taking that away from them, because that'll make you and your mates happy, but it ain't going to happen, mate. Not without a fight, it isn't. Yeah? And yes, okay, but what you're saying here, you're doing the classic new right thing, you're Ben Shapiro's et al, and just suggesting this is inherently appalling. I don't know. It's different, Connor. Society moves on and changes. Think about Gramsci. Oh no, we're not allowed to mention anything that you might want to read, of course. Men have poorer education and career attainment than their female counterparts below 30, and the age at which that gap levels out keeps creeping up. Yes, because we've become a more egalitarian society. We've changed and moved on. If you look at classic sociological writing, you will see that change is very, very positive. And indeed, part of that, read Talcott Parsons, try Durkheim, try Merton. I don't know. Change is important in society. Voids are stagnating into nothingness. Think Sidcup on a wet Sunday afternoon where you came from. Think of that as society in your view of it. Awful. Awful. Men are systematically disadvantaged by preferential hiring policies. Leave that one hanging in the air. Of course, yes. Of course, you are the oppressed one because you can't apply for what job? Go on, Connor. Just name one job that magically you can't apply for because you're a bloke. You're going to struggle, aren't you? But, as ever, equality will look like oppression, especially to Connor, and longer prison sentences for the same crimes. Yes, because men, very often, that commit crimes, very often don't have childcare responsibilities. Maybe read some sociology, some criminology. Maybe read something, Connor. Maybe read something and find out, rather than just sitting and bitching because your life isn't how you want it to be, and asking the rest of us to change to fit around you. Personally, I'm not. Their competence is culturally denigrated as antiquated, no longer necessary, and an expression of oppressive patriarchy. Yes, what I've just been saying for the last few minutes, which is basically true, isn't it? Okay, Connor? You don't actually work down a mine or lift things. Think about your own life and think about your own expectations around, for example, how much money you might make in the future. Yeah? I mean, if you want to earn an awful lot more money right now, train to be an electrician. That should sort out your masculinity. But of course you're not going to do that, because that would actually involve some chuffing work, wouldn't it, mate? So much easier to discuss comics in front of an audience of 14-year-old American neo-Nazis. Obviously. And if they dare express their discontent with an opportunity ceiling or inability to find a committed relationship, talking about himself again, however inarticulately, leave that one hanging, or unhelpfully the form that may take, they are castigated as misogynist incels and always deserving of their pitiful lot in life. Yes, like I'm doing now with you, mate, because you are a misogynist. Okay? That whole Christian-based view of the world that you have. And I will point out that you do spend a lot of your life sitting next to Carl Benjamin, who, let's face it, is a bit of a poster boy for disliking women, isn't he? Yeah. I mean, you know, I actually did a Google search for this image because I put the word incel in, and it was the first one that came up, oddly enough. The crisis of purpose is why they seek surrogate father figures like Jordan Peterson, who has wept with compassion at their condition. No, he hasn't. He's simply mentally ill, and oddly is given a platform where he can weep openly at almost anything. It's a sign of his own vulnerability. Think about that one. Think about that one, right? Yes, he's a poster boy for late period capitalism, male instability. There you go, Connor. It's staring you in the face. You too could open up and be emotional. Nah, not what we're after, is it? A crime has been perpetrated against young men by depriving them of mentors, vocations and pathway to filling that meaningful role as he of last resort, looked to by a wife, children and community. No, Connor, that's just a fantasy in your own head, mate. I've done other stuff around your pontificating on that. Men aren't that. Men have never realistically been that, okay? Yes, it's a cartoon view of masculinity which you're hung up on. We don't need more sibling rivalry. We need to re-engineer, engender solidarity and bring a ceasefire in this war of sexes that ultimately everyone will lose. No, just you, mate. Just you. Crying on your own, alone, in a bedroom, unable to seek help because you're too masculine to do it, and you'll be another statistic. Brutal? Yeah, probably. Give men ways to care again. You might find that you learn to like them. Well, how about changing, Connor? How about that? Yeah? I mean, again, you could just simply read some things. I might point you to Mary Wollstonecraft or Simone de Beauvoir. If you wanted to be radically late 20th century, you could read The Female Eunuch, couldn't you? I don't know, there's loads of other stuff out there you could read, Connor, and you would understand maybe a bit better about what's going on, you know? Just take, I don't know, just do a bit of GCSE, you know, sociology would basically do it. But of course you won't. Of course you won't, because you're just going to use your media platform for demanding that society turns the clock back to the 1950s because it'll make you feel happier. No. Sorry, mate. No, you change. The rest of us have had to. Okay? I mean, you know, in essence, become an adult. Become a rounded human being. Not a man, but a human being. Try it.